Hello and welcome back to the Path to Dharma podcast. I'm Shay, here with my beautiful mother Shannon, and we are currently reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Part 2. We are reading chapter 29 tonight. If you have your books, bring them along. Otherwise, join us as we embark.
Welcome, welcome. Hare Krishna.
What is your path to Dharma? Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. So, yes, in the last chapter, we were just discussing this before we were recording. We've kind of been hearing about Narada Muni talking to King.
Puranjana. No, King
No,
Prācīnabarhi.
yes,
Prācīnabarhi.
about King Puranjana,
Right,
who then reincarnates as a woman in his next life.
right,
And now we're back to this chapter is entitled Talks Between Narada and King Prācīnabarhi. So we're back to them.
right.
As we
And the whole,
know,
right.
stories within stories.
And the
Um,
whole point of that story that Narada told with Puranjana was these two different lifetimes, one when he was a man and one when he was a woman, and the different ways in which he got caught up in the material strands of nature,
right.
basically material nature in each different body. And
Yeah.
how he explained that actually, no, this is just all an illusion. Even if I have it seems like I have a really bad cold right now. I actually do have the flu, but it's an illusion, right? It feels pretty real. I will say that right now. Please excuse my crazy sounding voice. I'm gonna try to drink water and hang in there with everybody. But um, this this story that Narad has been telling us about being attached to the material nature, it's been crucial right now. It's been crucial to hear. I need to hear this story. I need to
Yeah.
know this story.
Yeah.
There's things around me. I look around that look like a dumpster fire. Seems like what is happening? I don't know. But at the same time, I don't know about you, but I've just been feeling really calm about it all. I have. I've been feeling at peace. And I know it's because of this. I know it's because we've been so tuned in to the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, to Krishna, to just the this idea of um I don't know, moving our souls forward in some way that's good for us, no matter what's happening. And I keep thinking about Lord Ram going to his coronation and that night sleeping on the forest floor and Sita. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They
Yeah.
slept on the forest floor that night. And so I say to myself, okay, well, even if that was the case, then that's what was supposed to happen.
Yeah. I think there comes a time, or at least for me, it's so funny because in our past videos, kind of before we fall in love with Krishna, we talk about many different spiritual ideas and kind of where we're at in our life in terms of our spiritual life. And something that we always say that we've been saying for years, even before Krishna, is like things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Right.
And I think finding Krishna has solidified that so much that it's like when you see the dumpster fire, it's like, huh, okay, like
Interesting.
what am I supposed to see in this? Very interesting instead of being like, oh shit, there's a dumpster fire, run. It's like, okay, this was placed in my path for a
Right.
reason.
Krishna's playing with us. What is he showing us right now?
And
It's
then
feel
and then just hearing all these stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam of this that happening to people time and time again
over
and
and
it be
over.
and it's like, okay, we're not alone in this. This is just part of the human experience that we've signed up for. Really, we're pure spirit souls. Really, we're gonna
Right.
go back to source eventually.
Right.
It's okay.
Totally
Dumpster
is.
fire, but really it's just an accumulation of a bunch of energy in a spot.
Um, you're in my shot. Oh, sorry. Will you shut my door? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, there
Part
you
of
go. That's that's
exactly.
life right now. That's life right now. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
In the words of Queen Kunti, in the paraphrased words of Queen Kunti, bring it on, Krishna.
Yeah.
I accept.
But
More,
also
please. More, please.
with love. Okay.
Please, may I have samosa? Yes,
Yes.
with love. Yeah, I
With
mean, Right.
I, I don't,
That
yeah.
wasn't a like a no. I
I'm
mean, I've had
like,
the flu for
okay.
a week. I'm on day 8 of the flu. It
Oh
lasts that
no.
long. And
I
I literally
know.
been flat on my back. It's been so miserable.
Oh, I
The
know.
human body, like the
I'm
whole
gonna
time.
bring
And
you some tea.
okay, sorry, we're chatting, everyone. I need some tea. I appreciate the
Yeah.
beautiful soup you brought me, actually. I tasted the love, the beautiful love you
Oh,
put into it.
good.
It
Good.
felt good. It tasted delicious.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Srimad Bhagavatam. Well, before we get into it, let's say some obeisances. And I will just read. And if you want to read, maybe we'll do the every three or
Yeah,
something.
you read a little bit and then maybe I'll just when you pause, I'll maybe read one or two.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
I'll definitely try to comment, but thank you.
All right. Well, before reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one must first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
Um,
All right. Srimad Bhagavatam, Fourth Canto, Part 2, Chapter 29. King Prācīnabarhi replied, My dear Lord, we cannot appreciate completely the purport of your allegorical story of King Purañjana. Actually, those who are perfect in spiritual knowledge can understand, but for us, who are overly attached to fruitive activities, to realize the purpose of your story is very difficult. Kind of
right,
where we were at when you
right.
first were like,
I
okay,
mean, that's been
recap.
us many
We're like, what,
times.
yeah, what happened in the last and what did it really mean?
Right. Like we hear you, Narada, but what?
Right. The great sage Narada Muni continued, You must understand that Puranjana, the living entity, transmigrates according to his own work into different types of bodies, which may be one-legged, two-legged, three-legged,
Okay.
four-legged, many-legged, or simply legless. Transmigrating into these various types of bodies, the living entity, as the so-called enjoyer, is known as Puranjana.
Okay. 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 The person I
S-
have described as unknown is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master and eternal friend of the living entity. Since the living entities cannot realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead by material names, activities, or qualities, he remains everlastingly unknown to the conditioned soul.
Oh, already
Hmm.
I'm like, wait, what are they saying? So I'm stuck on text too.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Let's,
no matter what body you are, the living entity, the so-called enjoyer, that is who Puranjana is representing in those stories. That's what he's saying. Doesn't actually matter if he's one-legged, two-legged, four-legged, whatever legged. Anybody who is the so-called enjoyer is being represented by Puranjana.
okay. So in the purport, the name Puranjana indicates one who enjoys possessing different types of bodies. His mentality for
Mm,
enjoyment in the material world is accommodated by different types of bodies. Okay. No,
okay.
that makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
So it's
So,
a, okay, go ahead.
okay. I think I'm wrapping my brain. Okay,
All
so
right.
then wait, I'm gonna just read text three again now
Yeah,
that
go
I
ahead.
the person I have described as unknown is the supreme personality of Godhead, the master and eternal friend of the living entity. Since the living entities cannot realize the supreme personality of Godhead by material names, activities, or qualities, he remains everlastingly unknown to the conditioned soul. Okay. When the living entity wants to enjoy the modes of material nature in their totality, he prefers, out of many bodily forms, to accept that body which has 9 gates, 2 hands, and 2 legs. Thus, he prefers to become a human being or a demigod,
Okay.
which
So
makes sense
it
because
can
there's a
be,
lot of different
right.
ways that we can interact with the world based on those 9 gates, 2 hands, and 2 legs.
Yes, which we've
There's,
read extensively about all of the purposes of each one of those things.
yes.
Yes.
So Thus, you would prefer to be a human being if you
Yeah.
were
Okay. Yep.
wanting to enjoy some type of material nature.
Yep.
The great sage Narada continued, the word pramada mentioned in this The great sage Narada continued, the word pramada mentioned in this regard refers to material intelligence or ignorance. It is to be understood as such. When one takes shelter of this kind of intelligence, he identifies himself with the material body. Influenced by the material consciousness of I and mine, he begins to enjoy and suffer through his senses. Thus, the living entity is entrapped.
Right.
He begins to enjoy and suffer through his senses.
That's how we perceive the
Enjoy,
material world.
and that's how we enjoy, and that's how we
That's
suffer.
how, right? Through the senses.
The five working senses and the five senses that acquire knowledge are all male friends of Puranjani. The living entity is assisted by these senses in acquiring knowledge and engaging in activity. The engagements of these senses are known as girlfriends, and the serpent, which was described as having five heads, is the life air acting within the five circulatory processes.
Okay, I like this. Wait, let's break this down a little bit. He says the five working senses, how you get the knowledge, are the
Mm-hmm.
male friends. And the engagement of those senses are known as the girlfriends. And the serpent, which is described as having five heads, is the life air, acting within the five circulatory processes. Is this like a description of this whole idea of like yin yang, masculine, feminine energy?
Kind of seems like it.
Super interesting.
Yeah, I bet the purport would give us some more info in there.
This
And
is
you see, and it's things like this. It's like, okay, so I was trained in Hatha yoga, okay, which is in a way, it was very disconnected from what we're reading in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and that it wasn't like very rooted in the ancient texts of yoga per se,
okay.
right? It was kind of very whitewashed and like on the surface. You take 200 hours. It's like, no, it's impossible to be a yoga master or
Right,
whatever
right, right.
with 200 hours. Anyhow, but then you come back down to here and it's talking about the different ways of circulation in the body: prana, apana, udana, vyana, and samana.
Yes.
And like
Yes.
these are the types of things that I'm familiar with. This is what I understand
Okay.
is like these are the different ways that prana can move in the body. And so that is the serpent, which was described. As we know, the serpent was the one who was protecting the city when it was kind
Right.
of burning down.
Yes. True, 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 true.
All right.
Okay. I just also want to read a little bit out of the purport just to kind of add to this because it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because of his desire to enjoy the material world, the living entity is dressed with the material gross and subtle bodies. Thus, he's given a chance to enjoy the senses. The senses are therefore the instruments for enjoying the material world. Consequently, the senses have been described as friends. Sometimes, because of too much sinful activity, the living entity does not get a material gross body, but hovers on the subtle platform. This is a ghostly life. Because of his not progressing a gross body, he creates a great deal of trouble for his in his subtle body. Thus, the presence
Wow.
of a ghost is horrible for those who are living in the gross body. That's so interesting. As
Wow.
stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in this knowledge can see all this. Okay,
Hmm.
so this whole idea of like the ghost body, the subtle body, all of this is connected in a way that we do not get. Probably. We totally
Right.
don't understand, but I think that what he's trying to describe here, is the different levels of actually like the different levels of being that we actually are.
Right.
Remember before we were talking about, we, the body, are actually a we. I'm a whole bunch of
Yeah.
cells. I'm a whole bunch of bacteria. I'm a we,
Yeah.
like a whole.
Well,
Ins
and in yoga, like going along with those different five ways of the circulatory processes. Like they talk about the five koshas of the body. And so like we have our food body, which is like, yeah, our gross body. And then you have your subtle body, and then you have
Yeah.
your mental body, and then you have like your spiritual body. I'm not explaining those correctly
Yeah, right.
by
But
any means, but I feel like that's the idea here is like, yeah, sometimes you don't even get to the gross body,
right.
but that doesn't mean we all don't have all those layers in us. We do.
And we want to satisfy the senses. That's part of
Yeah.
what we're doing here, right?
Oh,
And
geez,
like,
Louise.
did we take a body? Didn't we take a body to do? Because isn't that what we just heard described? Vishnu comes and takes a body to experience the
Right.
modes of material nature. Isn't that what we're doing here partially?
Let's keep reading.
Let's keep going. Okay, text
Text
7.
7. The 11th attendant, who is the commander of the others, is known as the mind. He is the leader of the senses both in the acquisition of knowledge and in the performance of work. The Panchala kingdom is that atmosphere in which the five sense objects are enjoyed. Within that kingdom is the city of the body, which has the 9 gates.
Okay. Yes.
I feel like we should draw a picture. I feel like there needs to be an illustration.
Right.
There probably is an illustration in fact.
I'm sure there is.
Text 8. Okay, so now we're going to be explained again. We've been explained this before.
Yes.
The eyes, nostrils, and ears are pairs of gates situated in one place. The mouth, genital, and rectum are also different gates. Being placed into a body having these 9 gates, the living entity acts externally in the material world and enjoys sense objects like form and taste.
Right.
2 eyes, 2 nostrils, and a mouth, all together 5, are situated in the front. The right ear is accepted as the southern gate, and the left ear is the northern gate. The 2 holes or gates situated in the west are known as the rectum and genital. The 2 gates named Kadyota and Avirmukhi have been spoken of, are the 2 eyes side by side in one place. The town named Vibrahita should be understood as form. In this way, the 2 eyes are always engaged in seeing different kinds of forms. Okay, so now this is explaining to us what the story of Puranjana
Yeah, right.
represented.
Okay.
Okay, which makes sense because Prācīnabarhi just said in the beginning, like, okay, great, but what does that all mean?
Yeah.
The 2 doors named Nalini and Nalini should be known as the 2 nostrils, and the city named Sarabha represents aroma. The companion spoken of as Avaduta is the sense of smell. The door called Mukhya is the mouth, and Vipana is the faculty of speech. Rasajna is the sense of taste. Okay, I'm gearing up to read all these different names. The city called Apana represents engagement of the tongue in speech, and Bahudana is the variety of foodstuffs. The right ear is called the gate of Pitru, and the left ear is called the gate of Devahu. Nāradā Muni continued. The city spoken of as Dakshina Panchala represents the scriptures meant for directing pravritti, the process of sense enjoyment and fruitive activities. Okay, so the city that was all happening in represents the scriptures meant for directing the process of the senses.
Okay.
The other city, named Uttara Panchala, represents the scriptures meant for decreasing fruitive activities and increasing knowledge. The living entity receives different kinds of knowledge by means of 2 ears, and some living entities are promoted to Pitraloka and some to Devaloka. All this is made possible by the 2 ears.
Hmm.
Oh,
Okay. This is just, it's like another way we're having a description of the body and the human experience kind of explained to us.
yep.
Do you want me to read a little bit? I probably could.
Yeah, go ahead if
The
you're up for it.
city called Gramaka, which is approached through the lower gate of Asuri, the genital, is meant for sex, which is very pleasing to common men who are simply fools and rascals. The faculty of procreation is called dermata, and the rectum is called niriti.
When it is said that Puranjana goes to Vaisasa, it is meant that he goes to hell. He is accompanied by Lubdaka, who is the working sense in the rectum. Formerly, I have spoken of two blind associates. These associates should be understood to be the hands and the legs. Being helped by the hands and the legs, the living entity performs all kinds of work and moves hither and thither.
It's so interesting how it's always described. Like, I feel like Narada
Yeah.
has 10,000 different ways to describe the same thing,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah. The word antapura refers to the heart. The word vishuchina, meaning going everywhere, indicates the mind. Within the mind of the living entity enjoys the effects of the modes of material nature. These effects sometimes cause illusion, sometimes satisfaction, and sometimes jubilation.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I'll pick up 17.
Mm-hmm.
Formerly, it was explained that the queen is one's intelligence. While one is awake or asleep, that intelligence creates different situations. Being influenced by contaminated intelligence, the living entity envisions something and simply imitates the actions and reactions of his intelligence. Okay, Narada just blew my mind with that because I feel like he just described this whole idea of creating your own reality. And like
Yeah.
we talk about, like, your life is what you imagine, your life is what you perceive it, your life is what you create it. And that's basically what he says. The intelligent creates different situations. Isn't that what we
Yeah.
do?
Mhm.
Nonstop, create different situations that we go through. We solve little things that we do, little problems that we come across, sometimes big problems. Like, man, we enjoy,
Well,
sometimes we don't enjoy.
I love being influenced by contaminated intelligence. The living entity envisions something and simply imitates the actions and reactions of his intelligence.
Right. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Look at, look at, it's 18 to 20. Okay. This should be good.
All right, Narada Muni continued. What I referred to as the chariot was in actuality the body. The senses are the horses that pull the chariot. As time passes, year after year, these horses run without obstruction, but in fact they make no progress. Pious and impious activities are the two wheels of the chariot. The three modes of material nature are the chariot's flags. The five types of life air constitute the living entity's bondage, and the mind is considered to be the rope. Intelligence is the chariot driver. The heart is the sitting place in the chariot, and the dualities of life, such as pleasure and pain, are the nodding place. The seven elements are the coverings of the chariot, and the working senses are the five external processes. The 11 senses are the soldiers. Being engrossed in sense enjoyment, the living entity, seated on the chariot, hankers after fulfillment of his false desires and runs after sense enjoyment, life after life.
Life after life.
I
This
feel like there
is
has to be a picture of this, like in the front. You know how they have those
right.
pictures?
This is like the one thing we listened to about the Bhagavad Gita, and he like busted into how the Battle of Kurukshetra is actually happening on us. Like we are the battle. like our
Mm,
body is the battlefield. And it was like, wait,
right,
what? Wait, what?
right.
Like, yeah, we get it, yes, but also it's a little bit mind-blowing to really think about how it's like as above, so below. This is
Mm-hmm.
like a hermetic saying that we hear. And this feels like that's exactly what it is. It's always a reflection of something bigger.
Right.
Everything, you know? Amazing. Amazing.
Um, okay, text 21. What was previously explained as Chandavega, Chandavega, powerful time, is covered by days and nights, named Gandharvas and Gandharvis. The body's lifespan is gradually reduced by the passage of days and night, which number 360.
Hmm.
What was described as kalakanya should be understood as old age. No one wants to accept old age. But Yavan Yavanesvara, who is death, accepts Jara, old age, as his sister.
Hmm.
Which,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Another big long one.
Another big one. The followers of Yamaraja are called the soldiers of death, and they are known as the various types of disturbances that pertain to the body and mind. Prajvara represents the two types of fever, extreme heat and extreme cold. Man, I feel that right now. Typhoid and pneumonia. The living entity lying down within the body is disturbed by many tribulations pertaining to providence and to other living entities and to his own body and mind. Despite all kinds of tribulations, the living entity, subjected to the necessities of the body, mind, and senses, and suffering from various types of disease, is carried away by many plans due to his lust to enjoy the world. Although transcendental to this material existence, the living entity, out of ignorance, accepts all these material miseries under the pretext of false egoism. I am mine. In this way, he lives for 100 years within this body. It's so ironic. I like because I'm sick right now. It's like so ironic to read that because that's really what it is. We're
Uh,
subject to all of it. We get carried away by our plans to enjoy shit. We do.
yeah.
We definitely
I
do.
mean, isn't this kind of what I was explaining to you earlier about like this rumination in my mind about like what I gotta do in order to feel safe?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
in thinking that it's making this assumption that I'm not safe, and it's like that.
Mm,
Like you're sick, but what are you thinking about?
yeah.
How you can it's almost like when you like can't smell or can't taste because you're sick and then it's like, oh, I just all I want to do is taste my food, or you then
Yeah.
realize like how grateful you are for your
Right.
sense of smell or
All I want
whatever.
to do is breathe through both nostrils, you
Right.
know? All I want to
Right.
do is, go for an hour without coughing.
Yeah.
All I want to do is sleep.
Yeah.
Ay, 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 the body. Okay, Narada.
All right,
Continue.
texts 26 and 27. The living entity by nature has minute independence minute.
Minute.
The living entity by nature has minute independence to choose his own good or bad fortune, but when he forgets his supreme master, the supreme personality of Godhead, he gives himself up onto the modes of material nature. Being influenced by the modes of material nature, he identifies himself with the body, and for the interest of the body becomes attached to various activities. Sometimes he is under the influence of the mode of ignorance, sometimes the mode of passion, and sometimes the mode of goodness. The living entity thus gets different types of bodies under the modes of material nature.
Okay. We pick these bodies to experience this particular mode of material nature, these modes of material nature that we're exposed
But
to.
not even just these bodies, but this scenario right
Yeah,
now.
we
Or
pick
what
this whole scenario. Yeah.
or the scenario that's going to happen in a minute
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
24, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Those who are situated in the mode of goodness act piously according to the Vedic injunctions. Thus, they are elevated to the higher planetary systems where the demigods live. Those who are influenced by the mode of passion engage in various types of productive activities in the planetary systems where human beings live. Similarly, those influenced by the modes of darkness are subjected to various types of miseries and live in the animal kingdom.
Hmm. Covered by the mode of ignorance in material nature, the living entity is sometimes a male, sometimes a female, sometimes a eunuch, sometimes a human being, sometimes a demigod, sometimes a bird, an animal, and so on. In this way, he is wandering within the material world. His acceptance of different types of bodies is brought about by his activities under the influence of the modes of nature. That's where it's like when you get really caught up into the details, like you were saying, of your life, and you're worried about these little mini things that actually probably don't even matter, when truly you're a divine being that's like just, tripping through the galaxy, and you just happen to be in this like shade body right now. But like what you're actually
Oh
should
my
be worried
God.
about is so much broader than the little mini things that actually catch our attention.
Yeah. Oh,
Crazy, crazy.
oh,
Wait,
this
no,
is
it's
such
so
a,
good. The next one's so good. 29.
okay.
It's so good.
Oh, wait, where am I? I think I skipped a page. Wait, didn't you just read 29, so this must be
Mhm.
30, 30 and
Okay.
31.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. 30, 31.
The living entity is exactly like a dog who, overcome with hunger, goes from door to door for some food. According to his destiny, he sometimes receives punishment and is driven out, and at other times receives a little food to eat. Similarly, the living entity, being influenced by so many desires, wanders in different species of life according to destiny. Sometimes he is high and sometimes he is low. Sometimes he goes to the heavenly planets, sometimes to hell, sometimes to the middle planets, and so on.
I mean, that's truly a long game we're playing. And sometimes people will be like, how come karma doesn't seem to work out for me? I mean, it's like, girl, you're playing a long game. You got like 17 lifetimes into that storyline. And like
Right,
it seems like that person like didn't get their comeuppance and seems like the bad how does a bad guy even win? You have no idea what life they have coming up that's going to pay for that. So you can't
right.
even worry about that. And it's like similarly, I can't worry about the outcome of the modes of material nature in any individual life
Yeah,
because I'm playing the long game,
yeah.
right?
Just inevitably, we all are.
That's what I'm taking from this.
But not only that, we're just a piece of God who's just playing out these pastimes. Like,
Right.
we were just born out of the belly button of Vishnu.
Yeah. Text 32, the living entities are trying to counteract different miserable conditions pertaining to providence, other living entities, or the body and mind. Still, they must remain conditioned by the laws of nature despite all attempts to counter these laws. This is, yeah, okay. Yes. This
Hmm.
is something I was listening to, was talking about how we as human beings, we get real stuck on being safe and comfortable. And that's it's like an enemy, but that's what it is. We're trying to counter the natural law of change. It's like
Right.
change happens, you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to
Yeah.
do all these things to counter aging, for example. But like,
Right.
but like
It's
no, that's,
right.
you can't stop that.
No. Dang, this is
This
just
is good.
a man may carry a burden on his head, and when he feels it to be too heavy, he sometimes gives release to his head by putting the burden on his shoulder.
Mm.
In this way, he tries to relieve himself of the burden. However, whatever process he devises to counteract the burden does nothing more than put the same burden from one place to another.
It's still a burden. You can't get rid of
Still a
it.
burden.
Ay, ay, ay.
Narada continued, "Oh,
Narada.
you who are free from all sinful activity. No one can counteract the effects of fruitive activity simply by manufacturing a different activity devoid of Krishna consciousness. All such activity is due to our ignorance. When we have a troublesome dream, we cannot relive it with a troublesome hallucination. One can counteract a dream only by awakening. Similarly, our material existence is due to our ignorance and illusion. Unless we awaken to Krishna consciousness, we cannot be relieved of such dreams. For the ultimate solution to all problems, we must awaken to Krishna
Yeah.
consciousness."
Sometimes we suffer because we see a tiger in a dream or a snake in a vision, but actually, there is neither a tiger nor a snake. Thus, we create some situation in a subtle form and suffer the consequences. These sufferings cannot be mitigated unless we are awakened from our dream. We
So
keep
true.
doing it. We just keep doing it over and over. Do you ever get stuck in a dream and it's like, why am I still
Yeah.
doing this?
I want to just read from the purport.
Yeah.
It says all of our sufferings are due to these material bodies, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance is due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception,
Yeah.
and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
Yes.
So yeah, happiness and distress and their disappearance is it's due to come.
Right.
And how do you just become even-minded through it all?
Right.
Okay. The real interest of the living entity is to get out of the nescience that causes him to endure repeated birth and death. Okay, this is our real interest.
Yeah.
The only remedy is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his representative. Wait,
Representative.
sometimes I can't read. Through his representative.
Yeah.
Unless one renders devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, one cannot possibly become completely detached from this material world, nor can he possibly manifest real knowledge.
Right. O
Oh,
best of kings, one who is faithful, one who is always hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always engaged in the culture of Krishna consciousness and in hearing of the Lord's activities, very soon becomes eligible to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face.
my dear king, in the place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious and engaged with great eagerness in hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in that place, if one gets a chance to hear their constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like the waves of a river, one will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear, lamentation, and
Hmm.
illusion.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about. Is
Yeah,
like actually tuning into that beautiful, pure devotional love.
yeah,
And then that's all you feel and that's all you want.
yeah. Text 41. Because the conditioned soul is always disturbed by the bodily necessities such as hunger and thirst, he has very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarine words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Mm.
Text 42 and to 44. The most powerful Lord Brahma, the father of all progenitors, Lord Shiva, Manu, Daksa, and the other rulers of humankind, the four saintly first-class brahmacharis, headed by Sanaka and Sanatana, the great sages Maharishi, Atri, Angiri, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Burgu, and Vasista, and my humble self, Narada, are all stalwart Brahmins who can speak authoritatively on Vedic literature. We are very powerful because of austerities, meditation, and education. Nonetheless, even after inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom we always see, we do not know perfectly about him.
Which is nuts because actually everything that Narada has told us and has taught us about God, and he's saying like,
I don't even
actually,
I don't even know.
I don't even know. Wow.
Text 45. Despite the cultivation of Vedic knowledge, which is unlimited, and the worship of different demigods by the symptoms of Vedic mantras, demigod worship does not help one to understand the supreme powerful personality of Godhead.
Okay. When a person is fully engaged in devotional service, he is favored by the Lord, who bestows his causeless mercy. At such a time, the awakened devotee gives up all material activities and ritualistic performances mentioned in the Vedas.
My dear king, you should never out of ignorance take to the Vedic rituals or to fruitive activity, which may be pleasing to hear about or which may appear to be the goal of self-interest. You should never take these to be the ultimate goal of life.
Right.
Those who are less intelligent accept the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies as all in all. They do not know that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand one's own home, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead lives. Not being interested in their real home, they are illusioned and search after other homes.
Yeah.
My dear king, the entire world is covered with the sharp points of kusa grass, and on the strength of this, you have become proud because you have killed various types of animals in sacrifices. Because of your foolishness, yeah, you do not know that devotional service is the only way one can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot understand this fact. Your only activities should be those that can please the personality of Godhead. Our education should be such that we can become elevated to Krishna consciousness.
Hmm. Text 50. Sri Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the super soul and guide of all living entities who have accepted material bodies within this world. He is the supreme controller of all material activities in material nature. He is also our best friend, and everyone should take shelter at his lotus feet. In doing so, one's life will be auspicious. Hmm.
One who is engaged in devotional service has not the least fear in material existence. This is because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supersoul in front of everyone. One who knows this secret is actually educated, and one thus educated can become the spiritual master of the world. One who is not an actually bona fide spiritual master, representative of Krishna, is not different from Krishna.
Text 52. The great Saint Narada continued. O great personality, I have replied properly about all that you have asked me. Now hear another narration that is accepted by saintly persons and is very confidential. Okay.
My dear king, please search out that deer who is engaged in eating grass in a very nice flower garden along with his wife. That deer is very much attached to his business, and he is enjoying the sweet singing of the bumblebees in his garden. Just try to understand his position. He is unaware that before him is a tiger, which is accustomed to living at the cost of another's flesh. Behind the deer is a hunter, who is threatening to pierce him with sharp arrows. Thus the deer's death is imminent. My dear king, woman, who is very attractive in the beginning, but in the end very disturbing, is exactly like the flower, which is attractive in the beginning and detestable at the end. With woman, the living entity is entangled with lusty desires, and he enjoys sex, just as one enjoys the aroma of a flower. He thus enjoys a life of sense gratification, from his tongue to his genitals, and in this way the living entity considers himself very happy in family life. United with his wife, he always remains absorbed in such thoughts. He feels great pleasure in hearing the talks of his wife and children, which are like the sweet humming of bumblebees that collect honey from flower to flower. He forgets that before him is time, which is taking away his lifespan with the passing of day and night. He does not see the gradual diminishing of his life, nor does he care about the superintendent of death, who is trying to kill him from behind. Just try to understand this. You are in a precarious position and are threatened from all sides.
Precarious. You are in a
Precarious.
precarious position and are threatened from all sides. You don't even know it. You're just sitting on your couch watching your favorite TV show. Next thing you know, crazy.
Text 55.
My dear king, just try to understand the allegorical position of the deer. Be fully conscious of yourself and give up the pleasure of hearing about promotion to heavenly planets by fruitive activity. Give up household life, which is full of sex as well as stories about such things, and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the mercy of the liberated souls. In this way, please give up your attraction for material existence.
I've been struggling with this because it's like if that's what we're supposed to do, that's hard. That's actually hard to do.
Right? I mean, do you remember that one time that Narada talked like all 100 of the people that were supposed to populate the earth? There was like 100 sons they finally had, and he like talked him in. He's like, no, you shouldn't go find wives. Go do this. Actually, you're supposed to like go get enlightened. And then they did. And then they had 100 more sons. And then here comes Narada and he got them to go do it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're supposed to do here.
Uh,
So yeah. I feel you because it's like the things that the world tells us we're supposed to be doing is 100% opposite of what Narada is telling us we should be paying attention to and doing every day. So what do we do? Because I want to pay attention to this and do this, but I have an electric bill that I have to give money to some, you know, basically somebody, some organization that I give them money. Next thing you know, I have electricity, and same with Wi-Fi, and same with like all the things. And I have
Right.
to trade my energy to get money. And I have to spend my life doing things that seem real irritatingly time consuming. They have nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with going back to Godhead because I got to make something
No,
for
because
dinner.
they're to please the senses.
Right. Exactly. We're planning for your wedding.
I'm
And you're
tired.
you're you're getting married in
I'm
a
t
couple months. Shay's getting married in a couple months. Whoop whoop.
Which it's funny that you bring that up because as we're reading this, I'm like, oh my, like,
Right. Householder
ah,
life. Yeah. Like all the things,
ah.
right? It's like you're the wife in this. And that suddenly it's like Peyton. It's like, hey, actually you shouldn't get attached to her whatsoever.
Like, am I gonna do this? Am I really gonna, am I really gonna do this?
Okay. All right. Text 56. The king
Ah,
replied, my dear Brahmin, whatever you have said, I have heard with great attention, and considering all of it, have come to the conclusion that the acharyas who engaged me in fruitive activity did not know this confidential knowledge. If they were aware of it, why did they not explain it to me?
right.
Like, wait a second, why have I never heard this before? And I've had teachers.
Yeah,
Why has no one said to me, actually, none of this matters?
right. My dear Brahmin, there are contradictions between your instructions and those of my spiritual teachers who engage me in fruitive activities. I now can understand the distinction between devotional service, knowledge, and renunciation. I had some doubts about them, but you have now very kindly dissipated all these doubts. I can now understand how even the great sages are bewildered by the real purpose of life. Of course, there is no question of sense gratification. The results of whatever a living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next. The results of whatever a living entity does in this
Okay.
life are
Okay.
enjoyed in the
In the
next.
next. So actually, I'm banking points up for my next life. Is that one of the reasons why I shouldn't pay attention to the fruits of my, basically the fruit? Because I shouldn't even expect to, experience the fruit in this lifetime. It's for next life anyway.
Right. That's one way.
Okay. Anyway. The expert knowers of the Vedic conclusions say that one enjoys or suffers the results of his past activities. But practically, it is seen that the body that performs the work in the last birth is already lost. So, how is it possible to enjoy or suffer reactions of that work in a different body?
Mm. The great sage Narada continued, the living entity acts in a gross body in this life. This body is forced to act by the subtle body, composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. After the gross body is lost, the subtle body is still there to enjoy or suffer. Thus, there
Mhm.
is no
Okay.
change. So, this is being stored in the subtle
In
body.
the subtle body. Right. The living
Ugh,
entity. The living entity, while dreaming, gives up the actual living body. That's true. I was hearing like Swami Sarva Priyananda talk about this. Like you give up the body when you're dreaming, like the dreamer. You
right.
become the dreamer, right? Through the activities of his mind and intelligence, he acts in another body, either as a god or a dog. It's true. It's like you're a whole different like entity in your dream.
Yeah.
After giving up this gross body, the living entity enters either an animal body or a demigod's body on this planet or on another planet. He thus enjoys the results of the actions of his past life.
Wow. The living entity labors under the bodily conception of I am this, I am that, my duty is this, and therefore I shall do it. These are all mental impressions, and all these activities are temporary. Nonetheless, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity gets a chance to execute all his mental concoctions. Thus, he gets another body.
He gets another body.
There's sirens going on out there. It's like, hello,
Yeah. Universe
listen
is
up.
affirming. Yep. Text 63. One can understand the mental or conscious position of a living entity by the activities of two kinds of senses, the knowledge acquiring senses and the executive senses. Similarly, by the mental condition or consciousness of a person, one can understand his position in the previous life. Okay, so also I've heard this that actually, if you want to know about your previous lives, just look at your current life. Your
Right.
personality and who you are and who you've developed to be is who you were last time. You remember Krishna said that you don't lose anything. You keep going.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you are picking up everything from the last life. You're carrying it forward. It's still you. It's still you. The real you.
I'm perplexed right now,
Ah, it's so
as
good.
happens. Text 64.
He explains right
Sometimes
here.
sometimes we suddenly experience something that was never experienced in the present body by sight or hearing. Sometimes we see such things as suddenly in a dream.
Right. And then that's when we're perplexed because we're like, hey, we've never seen this. We've never experienced this. Therefore, my dear king, the living entity who has a subtle mental covering develops all kinds of thoughts and images because of his previous body. Take this from me as certain. There is no possibility of concocting anything mentally without having perceived it in the previous body. What? Narada, what? Wait. What? I'm going to read that again. There is no possibility of concocting anything mentally without having perceived it in the previous body. Wow. Wait,
We gotta
what?
keep going.
Everyone, what do you feel about that? What?
Text 66. O king, all good fortune unto you. The mind is the cause of the living entities attaining a certain type of body in accordance with his association with material nature. According to one's mental composition, one can understand what the living entity was in the past life, as well as what kind of body he will have in the future. Thus, the mind indicates the past and future bodies.
I am still stuck on this thing. I cannot. A person has all sorts of thoughts and images because of his previous body. Take this from me as certain. There's no possibility. Why? I'm like mind blown by this right now. I'm mind blown by this right now. Okay, wait a second. All of my past bodies, like all of my thoughts are actually all connected to my prior past bodies' thoughts. And like I wouldn't even be thinking that. I can't even come up with that on my own because it's my past bodies.
Which makes sense. It's
Okay,
all just been living in our
okay,
subtle body, just
okay.
traveling with
Yeah,
us
it's
all
just
this
traveling
time.
with us the whole time. Just that's wild. Okay. All right. It's like I didn't even,
It's like it makes so much sense, and we've said this in different ways, but it's just one of those nights.
yeah.
You
Okay.
know, sometimes we read this and it's just like, what the ever living?
Do you ever have a reaction to some situation or some person and you're like, wow, where'd that come from? I
Yeah.
think Narada just explained. That
Yeah,
was in your other body, your other whole
right.
body. You brought it with.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why sometimes you meet someone, you instantly don't like them. You brought that from last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Mm.
Okay. Is this crazy that we're just having this? I don't know. Maybe it's because reincarnation hasn't really been a thing in our mindset throughout our lifetimes. I personally wasn't raised Christian. You kind of were, but I became Christian later in life. And so therefore reincarnation wasn't a thing that I really spent time thinking about. So maybe just the whole concept of how reincarnation even works
Right.
is um it's like I don't know, more complex than kind of on the surface of what it sounds like it is.
Right.
as Narada explains here. Okay, I don't want to. Okay, let's keep going. O king,
Uh,
all good fortune unto you. The mind is the cause of the living entities attaining a certain type of body in accordance with his association with material nature. According to one's mental composition, one can understand what the living entity was in his past life, as well as what kind of body he will have in the future. Thus, the mind indicates the past and future bodies.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yep. Yep.
Sometimes in a dream, we see something never experienced or heard of in this life, but all these incidents have been experienced at different times in different places and in different
Yeah.
conditions.
Yeah. Yep. That's probably why we react emotionally to things because of last time how we reacted. We just keep
Mm.
reacting those same patterns. And so our lifetimes are just these entire long, giant, enormous sequences of us trying to break our pattern of behavior.
To ascend, to enlighten, like eventually you get there, right? I mean, Krishna says that in the Gita, like, what? Okay, Arjuna's like, okay, what happens if I can't do this? It seems really hard.
Right.
Krishna's like, oh, it's okay. You'll just do it again and again and
Right.
again.
You'll just keep
Like, you'll just,
going.
yeah.
Text 68.
It's like, how many times?
Yeah, read text 68. He says it.
The mind of the living entity continues to exist in various gross bodies, and according to one's desires for sense gratification, the mind records different thoughts. In the mind, these appear together in different combinations. Therefore, these images sometimes appear as things never seen or never heard before.
Wow.
Krishna consciousness means constantly associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in such a mental state that the pure devotee can observe the cosmic manifestation exactly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead does. Such observation is not always possible, but it becomes manifest exactly like the dark planet known as Rahu, which is observed in the presence of the full moon.
Oh, wow. Text 70. As long as there exists the subtle material body composed of intelligence, mind, senses, sense objects, and the reactions of the material qualities, the consciousness of false identification and its relative objective, the gross body, exists as well. Hmm.
When the living entity is in deep sleep, when he faints, when there is some great shock on account of severe loss at the time of death, or when the body temperature is very high, the movement of life air is arrested. At that time, the living entity loses knowledge of identifying with the body with the self.
When one is a youth, all the 10 senses of the mind are completely visible. However, in the mother's womb or in the boyhood state, the sense organs and the mind remained covered, just as the full moon is covered by
Mm,
the darkness of the dark moon night. It's so interesting because one of my other daughters just had a baby, so that's part of why we missed a couple weeks. And thinking about and watching, basically, I didn't watch him be born, but watching him arrive in our life, this tiny newborn, and just thinking and knowing all these things about the different bodies. I was holding him and I was just looking at him and like, how many times have we done this? You and
yeah,
I, this little baby, this precious baby,
yeah.
you know? Um, like, what have we been through? I just remember they like looking at him like, wow, here we go again, little one. Like, wow. And like, what's going through his mind? Nuts. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Text 73. When the living entity dreams, the sense objects are not actually present. However, because one is associated with the sense objects, they become manifest. Right.
Yeah.
Similarly, the living entity with underdeveloped senses does not cease to exist materially, even though he may not be exactly in contact with the sense objects. Right. Yes.
The five sense objects, the five sense organs, the five knowledge acquiring senses, and the mind are the 16 material expansions. These combined with the living entity are influenced by the three modes of material nature. Thus, the existence of the conditioned soul is understood.
Is it? Is it that?
No,
Okay.
no, Narada, it's not. Like,
We're doing our best. We're
I hope
doing our
he
best.
comes to me in my dreams tonight, Narada.
Seriously. I always talk to Narada.
Text Text 75. By virtue of the processes of the subtle body, the living entity develops and gives up gross bodies. This is known as the transmigration of the soul. Thus, the soul becomes subjected to different types of so-called enjoyment, lamentation, fear, happiness, and unhappiness.
Sorry.
It's okay. The caterpillar transports itself from one leaf to another by capturing one leaf before giving up the other. Similarly, according to his previous work, the living entity must capture another body before giving up the one he has. This is because the mind is the reservoir for all kinds of desires.
Wait, what?
I feel like we need to. That's a big old purport on that.
Yeah.
So, what? Okay, purport. Even at the point of death, he thinks of his present body and the relatives connected to it. Thus, he remains fully absorbed in the bodily conception of life, so much so that even at the point of death, he abhors leaving his present body.
Right.
Sometimes it is found that a person on the verge of death remains in a coma for many days before giving up the body.
True.
This is common among so-called leaders and politicians who think that without their presence, the entire country and all society will be in chaos. This is called Maya. Political leaders do not like to leave their political posts, and they either have to be shot by an enemy or obliged to leave by the arrival of death. By superior arrangement, a living entity is offered another body, but because of his attraction to the present body, he does not like to transfer himself to another body.
Okay.
Thus, he is forced to accept another body by the laws of nature.
I understand that. And if
Right.
anybody's ever like been with somebody before they passed or while they're passing, you do know that there's a definite it feels almost like there's a choice point.
Mm,
And people will talk about like waiting, their relative waited till a certain thing happened to
right.
pass, basically. So that
Yeah.
makes sense because we get so super attached.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, text 78. As long as we desire to enjoy sense gratification, we create material activities. Okay.
Yeah.
When the living entity acts in the material field, he enjoys the senses, and while enjoying the senses, he creates another series of material activities.
Right,
In
right.
this way, the living entity becomes entrapped as a conditioned soul. So, as long as we desire to enjoy sense gratification, we will keep creating material activities for us to do.
We'll keep doing it because we want to do it.
Yep, because we
We want to do it,
desire, yeah.
actually. We want to.
Text 79. You should always know that this cosmic manifestation is created, maintained, and annihilated by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, everything within this cosmic manifestation is under the control of the Lord. To be enlightened by this perfect knowledge, one should always engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. And then going back, the great sage Maitreya continued.
Oh man. Holy, holy, how many narrators deep are we? Holy cow.
This
Maitreya.
Right? The supreme devotee, the great Saint Narada, thus explained to King Prācīnabarhi the constitutional position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and living entity. After giving an invitation to the king, Nāradā Muni left to return to Siddhaloka.
Okay.
In the presence of his ministers, the saintly king Prācīnabarhi left orders for his sons to protect the citizens. He then left home and went off to undergo austerities in a holy place known as Kapilasarama.
It seems like that happens
Yes.
a lot after Narada drops in and gives some advice.
They're
People are
like,
like,
all
well,
right,
okay, what else?
forget this. I'm out of here.
I'm out.
Text 82. Having undergone austerities and penances at Kapilasrama, King Prācīnabarhi attained full liberation from all material designations. He constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and he attained a spiritual position qualitatively equal to that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My dear Vidura, one who hears this narration concerning the understanding of the living entity's spiritual existence as described by the great sage Narada, or who relates it to others, will be liberated from the bodily conception of life.
Ow, ow.
I
Okay, text 84. This narration, spoken by the great sage Narada, is full of the transcendental fame of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, this narration, when described, certainly sanctifies this material world. It purifies the heart of the living entity and helps him attain his spiritual identity. One who relates this transcendental narration will be liberated from all material bondage and will no longer have to wander within this material world. Let's go.
gotta read this a couple more times before I'm um
Yeah, I don't know. Seriously.
narrating this to others, that's for sure.
Yeah, duh.
Because, oh my goodness me, this is so much information.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Text 85. The allegory of King Puranjana described herein, according to the authority, was heard by me from my spiritual master, and it is full of spiritual knowledge. If one can understand the purpose of this allegory, he will certainly be relieved from the bodily
Yeah.
conception and will clearly understand life after death. Although one may not understand what transmigration of the soul actually is, one can fully understand it by studying this narration. All right, yeah,
Okay.
I'll be back to study.
Yeah,
That's for
okay.
sure.
Okay. Fair enough. Like you might not get it, but
What is this? Text A1 to
yeah, what is
1A to
this?
2A? I don't know. I mean, we
Suddenly
could.
there's a random okay, well no, I don't know, there's a few more. Text 1A and 2A.
Oh, okay.
A
Wait, so
desire
what?
to, yeah, there's a couple more.
Okay.
A desire to maintain body, wife, and children is also observed in animal society. The animals have full intelligence to manage such affairs. If a human being is simply advanced in this respect, what is the difference between him and an animal? One should be very careful to understand that this human life is attained after many, many births in the evolutionary process. A learned man who gives up the bodily conception of life, both gross and subtle, will, by the enlightenment of spiritual knowledge, become a prominent individual, spirit soul, as the Supreme Lord is also.
If a living entity is developed in Krishna consciousness and is merciful to others, and if his spiritual knowledge of self-realization is perfect, he will immediately attain liberation from the bondage of material existence.
Yeah, we've heard that. We've kind of heard that again and again. Text
Yeah.
2b, everything happening within time, which consists of past, present, and future, is merely a dream. That is the secret understanding in all Vedic literature. Wow, okay. Ah, my mind is smoking right now. It's like my brain is like literally like trying to process what did I just read. Hey, okay. Well, you know what? Just the fact that we are sitting here reading this right now tells me we've read this in other lifetimes, Shay. We
Yeah.
wouldn't even be having this in front of us to even consider what are we even reading here if we haven't been prepared to do it in some way. We've done it before. Narada explained it. This is from things what we did in the last life where we set it up. Like I personally set it up not to find all this until I was over 50. I set
Yeah.
it up that way. But nevertheless, it's showing up for me at a time when I need to know all this. So sometimes I just have to tell myself that, even if it doesn't seem like um, not that I'm not getting it, but it doesn't seem like, I don't know, like
Like
there's
you're
so
quitting and
much to
going to the
know.
forest yet?
Yeah, right. Like there's so much to know. So I can't possibly take it all in at once.
Right.
We have to like take these little bits of it, these little bits and pieces of it. Yeah, we're not ready to go to the forest. I'm not ready to go be enlightened, I guess.
Oh my
I'm still in the
gosh.
dream. I'm still in the dream. I still want to go back and finish my dream. I guess. I don't know. Okay, well, Thanks everyone for tolerating my terrible voice and coughing. I really apologize for all that. That was
I
really kind of a longest chapter, and we thought about doing two chapters when
I
we sat
know.
down, but I don't think we're gonna. I think
I
we're gonna
feel
end
like
here.
they dropped the mic just now.
Yeah,
I don't even have anything else to say. I feel like I need to go reread that and
right.
ponder. I don't know. That was, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I told you before we started, if we weren't recording right now, I was probably gonna go to bed, and that's probably what I'm gonna do right after this.
Yeah.
And it's like I actually love going to bed right after we read, kind of, because
I
it
know.
swirls around in there, and I just feel like
Mm-hmm.
in the dream, let me go to somewhere where I can talk to somebody about this more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, Hare
Hey,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
thanks everyone. Love and blessings. Usually I send you guys like healing and love, but please send it to me. Please send me some healing, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ay, ay, ay. Hopefully I'll be better next week. But in the if not, it's still okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna be fine. It's all in the divine plan. Hare Krishna.
Amen. Until next time, my friends.
See you next time. Ay, wow.